Now we're ready.
Inside
So
joke.
I'd like to
Here
introduce
yesterday.
Mission Possible.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Team Mission Possible, we would like to thank Dr. Annie Norman and the staff at the Delaware Division of Libraries. We would especially like to thank the iLead support team, Serena Fletcher, Katie McDonough, Sonia Brown, also Tracy and Bill for all their IT help. Thank you. We also would like to thank the Illinois State Library for making iLead a possibility here in Delaware. We'd like to thank all the instructors, both in person and online, for providing us new insights, thought-provoking topics, and an opportunity for us to explore, apply, and discover. So let me introduce you to the members of Team Mission Possible. We have Pam Stevens from the Brandywine 100 Library, Renata Cumming from Appoquinimink Library, Julie Kirk from the Newcastle Public Library, Katrina Sarah Prue from the Corbett Callaway Memorial Library, and Mary Beth Jones from Cedar Lane Elementary School. Team Mission Possible was formed out of the desire to take another look at the relationship between public librarians and our counterparts, the school librarians. So join us as we discuss our iLead journey, starting with where we started, where we currently are, and where we envision the future of this project.
Good evening. We're going to start with our mission. Our mission is to support local schools with the sharing and collaboration of services, programs for the benefit of all. We'd like to take this statewide by developing a partnership between Delaware schools and public libraries. And this will foster a collaboration that will maximize the use of educational resources for all our students.
As we developed our project during iLead, one of the assessment methods that we used was called the SWOT analysis, which stands for our strengths, our opportunities, our weaknesses, and our threats. And we did this for both public libraries and school libraries. Some strengths included our resources that the public libraries have to offer, and even the fact that we have more hours open than a school library. Some weakness that we had, or everybody had, was limited funding, especially in the school libraries, and the public library card policy. Some opportunities include support from our educators and grant writing. And some threats include lack of administration buy-in from both sides and staff buy-in from both sides. This tool was used to help us to see what we were working with as we developed our plan.
In addition to the SWOT analysis, we conducted some research to lend validity to our ideas. So I started with history, and as early as the late 1800s, public libraries were recognized as auxiliaries to education. ALA urged cooperation between school and public libraries, but since school libraries were almost non-existent at the time, public libraries supported the needs of students and teachers. As school libraries developed in the 1890s and 1900s, public libraries developed initiatives to work with school libraries, such as book loans, to classrooms and school departments in public libraries. By the mid-1900s, school libraries were being recognized as critical to carrying out educational responsibilities. School libraries were becoming more common, and public libraries began to serve a more complementary role. Yet not all student needs could be met by the school libraries. Professional standards and guidelines encouraged cooperation for total community library service. In the 1970s and 80s, more public library networks were being formed, but school libraries were not included. And still, the school library was not able to meet all of the students' educational needs. Which leads us to where we are today, still trying to provide school and public library services that address the total needs of children and teens, including education, recreation, personal information and interests, and career needs. Delaware has almost 148,000 school children between the ages of 5 and 18. and yet only 13% are actively using their public library card. That leaves 87% of school-age children receiving only school library services or no library services at all. School and public library systems across the nation are recognizing the need to deliver more comprehensive library services and are creating partnerships and collaborations from the basic to the truly innovative. The backbone of any school public library collaboration is connection, building relationships. School and public libraries have a common purpose, providing young people with resources, skills, and tools they need to succeed in school. While school libraries provide access to materials during the school day, public libraries provide access after school, weekends and holidays, and especially during the long summer break. Through our research, we have discovered collaboration projects that we are currently doing, such as library card sign-up at school events, school visits to promote public library services and programs, such as summer reading program, and field trips to the public library. But there is so much more we could do, and is currently being done successfully in other library systems, such as assignment alerts, database presentations, orientations for educators, principal-led story evening at the public library, programs and continuing education credits at the public library for educators, and one of my favorite, public library card on the school supply list. Beyond that lies the opportunity to think outside the box, which we will address in a bit. Our research has reinforced our ideas for a school public library collaboration and reminded us that together we can accomplish more and create stronger institutions and communities.
For any professional collaboration to be successful, both parties involved have to be invested. Our research and our own collaboration have already taught us that school and public library collaborations can indeed be very successful. But before we wanted to go ahead with our vision, we wanted to hear from our own colleagues in libraries around the state. So we sent out a survey. The survey went out to a total of 325 people across the state. 270 of them were public library staff. 55 of them school librarians. The 55 school librarians are all members of DASL. DASL is the Delaware Association of School Librarians. And we actually presented our project to them at their annual meeting. Their response was overwhelmingly positive. We were really embraced with open arms. Our response rate overall was 25%. The school librarian response rate was over 50%. That's how excited they were. Now, I'm going to share some of the insight of the survey with you. One of that is when we asked them how beneficial do you think a collaboration would be, would you participate? 88% of all respondents said yes, they would participate. 11% said maybe, and 1% said no. So, there's always one reason. Then one of the questions was which resource or which resources, we gave them choices, would you consider helpful in supporting your educational goals? The number one here for, again, this is overall for all respondents, was with 84% of respondents, library representation and card registration at school events. Something we've been doing and it's very much appreciated. Number two was summer reading here with 80% of respondents. And then with 72% after school homework help. Now these numbers change a little bit when you look at them separately. For school librarians, the number one most helpful resource would be a teacher library card with 80% requesting that. Now number 2, that's a tie for book club in a bag with 75% of respondents, and library representation and card registration. And then on the public library side, number 1, library representation and card registration with 89% in favor, and then summer reading 87%, and assignment alerts 78%. And let me elaborate a little bit because we got some input with open-ended questions on that. Summer reading here, on the public side, we got input that summer reading would be very helpful if we had alerts from the schools, if we would be told earlier what kind of selections the schools are making, what kind of books they are reading, so we could provide these books at an earlier time for the children and also tailor our programs to those summer reading selections. And same with assignment alerts, if we are more aware of what curricular needs the schools have, again, we can adjust our collection developments better in the nonfiction areas in teen and children, in the children's department. Okay?
Okay, so there's already been collaboration going on during our project, and we documented that with a short video. But before we see the video, I just wanted to lay some groundwork. Our first video that we were asked to perform, to do, we chose the name of the team to be Mission Possible because we believe that this mission is possible of collaborating with schools and public libraries. Our first mission as Mission Possible was to find the kids. So we accepted that challenge, and here's the results.
Over here, it's going to be really rainy. Over here, there's going to be a tornado storm.
That's a bad day for me. There's breaking news.
There's a woman who lost her head. Yeah. And that's it for breaking news. Bye, Mom.
Hello again. I have been a school librarian for many years, and there has always been a need for school libraries and public libraries to not merely coexist, but to help each other meet children's, not only meet children's reading needs, but also their instructional needs. And in the past, I have met with public librarians, and I've given them summer reading lists and alerted them to some research projects, but the relationship never really lasted. When I first came to iLead in March, I was astounded by the many services that public libraries offer, not to mention the expertise of public librarians. I met my Mission Possible team, and I thought of myself as a leader in a school that this project could really help me utilize some outside resources to benefit my students' needs. Well, I am an elementary school librarian, And the sky is the limit, but there are some limitations right now with my little guys. They don't drive. Many of them, believe it or not, don't have public library cards. So the first order of business was to invite my local librarian, Katrina, into my school to meet my students. She read them an engaging story, and she talked about her summer reading program at Corbett Callaway and the benefits of having a public library card. But the most important thing she did was she told my students that they have a friend at the public library. And by the end of last summer, over 100 of my students and their families walked in her library door looking for her. They signed up for her summer reading program, and many of them participated in the STEM activities that you saw in that video. Katrina and I are working together in my school, but my colleagues in the district, my fellow librarians, know about our project, and we invited Katrina to attend our Wise Women event. It's our annual conference that celebrates the careers of math and science. And Katrina had a session, and that was the wind tunnel you saw. It was very popular, and the kids did a craft, and many of them signed up for library cards. Not to mention, Katrina made many connections that night and was invited to other school events. Back to my school, we have our students started a monarch project, a butterfly habitat, so Katrina and I are going to plan some extension activities around that. Just this past week, I started insect research with my second grade students, and I showed them some 3D insects, and so we're going to do some 3D printing. The public library, Katrina's going to come in and demonstrate. Katrina and I are also planning a Minecraft night for my students studying colonial times and the Oregon Trail. In February, during Delaware's I Love to Read Month, my school reads one book. It's called One School, One Book. And Katrina's going to be on the planning committee helping teachers and students enjoy that one book. So we're planning some public school activities and public library activities. So as you can see, the sky is the limit.
So, Mary Beth has touched upon some experiences that we've been doing together this past year, and I wanted to elaborate on, because of those experiences and visiting her schools and having her students come into our public library, what I've learned is that connection with her, with the kids, with the parents is the most important aspect of what we're trying to do. And we want to be a model for other school librarians and other public librarians to copy, because it's possible and it's working. Another aspect of what I've experienced this past year is networking with my iLead colleagues. Many of them I did not know before iLead, and I now am going to invite one of them to come to our library and do a scratch program. Then I'm going to try to have Mary Beth's students come. And so it's just all a networking system, and that's really great experience that I have, gone through. Also, through these projects and these events of going to her school, going to Festival of Words, literacy nights, it has taught me how much many people in the state of Delaware do not know what we have in our public libraries. And so it's something that we can address through this type of collaboration.
Since I've worked at both school libraries and public libraries, I have to completely agree with my colleagues here that those connections within the school are the most important thing, and they have really helped me with collaborations, and I've done collaborations before iLead, and I will continue to cultivate them. It's the most important thing in getting kids into the library and keeping them coming, because the teachers and the school librarians can help us get them to come and join our programs when we collaborate with them. Another experience that has been very helpful to me through iLead is getting to know a lot of you, making those connections outside my own library system, not just within Newcastle County, but going beyond. And that has been very valuable to me on a personal level, a personal professional network. And beyond that, I love to dream big. And iLead encourages big dreams. And I can't tell you how liberating and empowering that has been. That whole experience has been fantastic. And I want to thank Serena and the state, or whoever is behind this, the technology you have brought in here, the things we've tried out. I've always loved technology, but what we've tried here, I wish everybody in the library system could experience it, because it's so much fun. People will get so inspired. I'm going to stop now, but you get the message.
So I've had a really great experience with this whole process. Specifically with our team, I had an opportunity to go to the Appoquinimink High School for a Chamber of Commerce event. And I was able to meet with teachers, students, and the school librarian there. And it was very eye-opening, just to reiterate what they're saying. They don't know what we have. So a music student came to me and said they would love to have a place where they could perform after hours, after school hours. Well, you know, we have that, and especially with the new library coming at Route 9, you know, the Black Box Theater, I mean, that's something that we're going to be geared towards. You have the art department that doesn't know that we have green screen equipment. They were really thrilled about that. I actually had one science teacher approach me, and he knew about our Minecraft program, and he wanted to get his kids involved in the Minecraft program because he wanted them to learn. They didn't know Minecraft. But here's the science teacher, you know, we could help each other, because here's the science teacher that has this giant robot, like far beyond anything that we have, teaching his kids how to do the robot. So through this collaboration, you know, it's very, could be very beneficial for both sides. And I think on a more personal level, with the whole iLead experience, I think the videos that have been streaming through from Illinois have been really inspiring, just the possibilities that are out there. For example, the Ann Arbor District Library has a column in their catalog labeled unusual stuff. And within this unusual stuff, you can have, you know, power tools, you could have musical instruments, you could have a heat thermometer for your home. I mean, there's all sorts of things that they are lending at the Ann Arbor District Library. You should check it out. And not only materials and services that we can offer, but just to have the building itself to be more engaging with the user. The new North Carolina University Library has a wall that is a collage of photos that the library user can take a picture and actually post, hashtag, to their library site, and that picture will be instantly put up on that wall. So it really engulfs a sense of community and ownership within the library. And that is what has been really inspiring to me, because that aligns with my dreams of the future of libraries.
As the theme has been connections, I have also made plenty of connections through my iLead experience. Some have been obviously with my iLead colleagues here, but also with through my team, I was connected with some school educators who invited me into their school to do library card sign-ups, and that is continuing. I have a new invitation to a different school coming up. I have staff who also go into the schools to do book discussions and to do story times with the elementary school students. We invite students to our library for story time. Just last week we had Governor Markell come in to do Read for the Record Day, and he read to two different classes from two schools of pre-K and kindergartners. And we know that doing this is a time commitment, but we've made this time commitment a priority for us. So and this also speaks to the new model of librarianship. that libraries are no longer just about books, but doing other things and improving the community.
So one of the outcomes that we just learned today, outcomes of this project is a resource list. Right now, we have this list that is a listing of everything that we have available. Whether it's a technology, software, programs that libraries offer, even the facility, you know, teachers and schools and librarians, they need to know what we have. How big is your room? What will it encompass? You know, how small is your study rooms? Anything. More importantly, there's a personal contact on this list so that we can use that as collaboration and build that personal relationship between schools and libraries. And also, reiterating on the fact, you know, what I said before, like the Ann Arbor District Library with all that unusual stuff. I can just imagine this resource list having like a list of, you know, things that can be checked out. You know, if you need a bass guitar, drum, and a guitar to practice your own band, there it is on our resource list. Wouldn't that be wonderful? So this is going to be all-encompassing. It's going to be throughout the state of Delaware. Everything is going to be listed for each library, and it'll be a great tool to bridge that gap.
Like I mentioned earlier, my early connections with public libraries have not been ongoing. So we have ongoing plans. We're going to take it on the road to the library town hall meeting. We're going to see the public library division workshop in February. The public town hall meeting is in January. And these small but meaningful connections, of course, need to be advertised. And just being at iLead, these 3 different sessions, we've learned so much technology that we're already planning with the makerspace and some of the other technologies. So we want to continue those reading promotions and celebrations.
We're going to continue our outreach and our library card sign-ups. For example, last night I had to, even though we had iLead, I was invited to go to a different school to their literacy night, and we had over 20 library card sign-ups. And next week I'm going to a father and son's dinner. We're also going to continue with our joint programming, for example, the One Book, One School Read. On our technology activities, as Mary Beth touched upon, this week we've played with Sphero, and we learned about Makerspace through our webinar, and we decided that we're going to do it, and we're going to find a way to collaborate it with the public library and school library. And of course, statewide events. For example, Festival of Words is an event that's statewide through the school district, and that's something that Renata and I have been part of for the last 2 years, but we want to be part of it even on a bigger scale in correlation with the public libraries.
For the far future, these are some things that we hope to accomplish as well. We would like to have our programs included on the Association for Library Services to Children's website that includes the library, public library, and school library cooperative programs. So we're hoping to be able to add to that so that people nationwide will be able to copy what we're also doing.
We also envision a statewide website, whether that be part of the state or a LibGuide. We don't know yet what form that will take. It would certainly include the resource list with all staff expertise, which is very important. We want to include Sussex County and technology explanations. And by that we mean when we talk to teachers and school librarians, many of them are not aware of what the technology that we have, what that means. What can we do with that? When we write Makey Makey or Sphero or Green Screen, they might have heard of it, but they don't know what on earth am I going to do with that in the classroom. So we will use links, videos of our own collaborations or examples of what can be done with that technology in the classroom and tie it to the classroom extensions to it. So it actually makes sense and people will be interested in using that technology.
From the survey, we know that 80% of the school librarians are interested in an educator card. So we would like to advocate for that, and we realize that that would take some policy mending, policy modifying, and would need to go through a lot of channels to get done. But we're hopeful that this is something that would be approved, and we would also like to include on this card extended professional courtesies, just so that we can increase public school librarians' access to the public libraries.
Then we have grant writing, because some of those open-ended questions on the survey made it very clear that a lot of the schools actually do have iPads, and the kids have access to iPads, but the public libraries don't. And there are so many programs we could be doing with iPads, as we have learned from our app workshops, and we all know anyway. So we want to write some grants so we can get iPads and possibly other technologies into our libraries, hopefully throughout the state. So we are optimistic, and we are going to try it on.
Well, I'd like to end my part of the presentation with telling you what my dream is. And essentially, my dream is to build upon those connections that I have already made with teachers and school librarians and the kids, and eventually make lifelong library users from what we've already done.
My dream is that all school children in Delaware view the public library as an extension to their classroom. Many children tell me that the library is their favorite place in the schools. I'd like to see all Delaware children realize that the public library is their favorite place in the community.
My dream is that summer reading program will be a mandatory assignment from the schools for every public school student.
My dream is to transform the Delaware libraries from an information center to an imagination center. Never settle for less than you can imagine.
And my dream is that one day soon every child in the state of Delaware will be a proud owner and active user of a public library.
Any questions? Question?
Of course, Diana.
That's good.
Hey, if I'm here, I'm going to pay attention.
Yes.
Actually, I have two questions, in all seriousness. When you talk about a teacher's library card, what does that mean? What does that entitle the teacher to?
The teachers were saying on the survey, extended privileges, they mean longer lending periods.
Okay.
Possibly, they are not expecting no fines. They are maybe,
Maybe they can sign out more materials than
More
the
ma-
average user.
not necessarily even that, because they can already get 100
Okay.
items. It's not so much that. Mostly they wanted extended time. Because sometimes 3 weeks is just not enough, especially when we are talking about whole classroom sets, because that's a really big demand. They would like to, like 10 items for a literature circle that they could have, like sort of like what Dover has, their book club in a bag.
So what I would suggest as a follow-up, I think you're all aware that there's a steering committee for Delaware Public Libraries, and there's representatives from all three counties, and something like this would go through that steering committee. So what I would suggest is that to shape out this, you make the recommendation really specific, like give examples of the types of titles, because I think it's doable, but I think it would be kind of within a box, that for these types of materials, the loan period would be whatever, and
Yeah.
that type of thing. I think rather than just going in open-ended and saying you want a teacher's card, the more specific you are, the
Okay.
more the likelihood that it will go through.
We also had one big request. We have a lot of teachers from Maryland that teach in Delaware, and they cannot have access to our libraries. And that
Well,
was a
they
big
can,
issue.
but that-
I mean, yeah,
Right.
yes, they do. And
So
that was a
what
big
I-
issue with them.
So what I would suggest is that maybe if they can get their administration to write a letter or
Okay.
something
Include
of
that
that
too.
nature that's kind of a proof of, I think if it comes from an administrator, that it's something that could be considered.
Okay.
That's very helpful.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And then the other thing is, I'm not sure why you think that you need to write a grant to get iPads. And Serena was at our last, our Delaware town meeting, and I brought up mobile devices because at Route 9, we're designing it to do a lot of these things. And we've been having conversations with the state librarian about how we budget for, whatever technology is coming next. So Annie had asked us to do wish lists. So I think that is a question of talking to your public library managers and saying, maybe we buy fewer hardwired PCs in the future. So for example, I don't know when there's a 3-year cycle for hardwired PCs in your library. So for those of you that are due, maybe instead of getting 22 hardwired PCs, you get 18 and you get iPads instead. So I think that's the way we need to look at it, because we're actually seeing less computer use using hardwire fixed machines than we have, and it's being tracked. So it's kind of like that transition of when do you stop buying books on cassette and start buying books on CD? Or when do you stop buying books on, or stop buying video cassettes and buying DVDs? I think we really need to look at technology transitionally. The pot's going to be the same, but there's no use buying hardwired PCs if you don't need them. And in many of your libraries, it's actually shrinking. You can have some who has them. So those are my two questions.
Thank you.
This is so beneficial
Yeah.
to schools because funding, especially with technology, is not very good sometimes for school libraries. So to know that technology is out there in the public, it's good.